we've got, this is really, we're have some fun with here. So last week we talked a little bit about FDCPA, and I've got a client file, an account, a debt collection account from Jessica, who's in here. And we talked about it real quick last week on the show, and I was like, send me the client file, let's take a look. So I've got it, we're going to go through it, and then we're going to kind of put together kind of a final dispute here to tie everything together. And this is a great file. And as you see going through it, it's marked in dispute by the debt collector, but it's actually on one of the bureaus, Experian annual credit report. It shows the historical comments of like, which goes to show you there's the current reporting and there's all the historical reporting. On the historical reporting, they didn't report it every month. And so it says like it was in dispute from these periods of time and from these periods of time, but not from these periods of time, right? And so how can it have not been in dispute for a certain periods of time, right? And with your FDCPA, reporting false information, including not reporting an item, is in dispute, is one of the things. So we're going to tie together a bunch of stuff from last week. This is an account that is showing in dispute, but because they've got the historical, we can actually see the holes in that, and we can use that to the client's advantage. So let's kind of take a look at what we have here. So kind of first what I did here is if you take a look, it's kind of a file folder. So this is, this is what you're going to want to do when you want to send up a file to have an attorney look at it. You want to get your stuff organized. Now, I am missing some documents, some facts and stuff in here from before, which again is why I want to give a really good paper up for Jessica, what we're going to do here today, because we're missing a lot of stuff, okay? So we've got to clean it up and get a good fact pattern so we can hand it off to somebody. But what we have is, August 3rd of this year, we have Equifax dispute results. Okay, so it's kind of in chronological. I kind of numbered them like this so you can see. Okay, so we've got Equifax dispute results and IQ data. This is the trade line we're talking about, and they're just showing consumer disputes this account, but they don't give you that historical data for it. And it's still reporting. Okay, so this is basically a rental lease is what we're dealing with here, and they're collecting on a rental lease $9,000. What this is reporting. Okay, so let's look at what we've got here. Let's like analyze the account itself. So what we have here is we do have the date of first delinquency because this is Equifax. It's 2017. So this is a 6-year-old account. It is showing $9,300 owed, and it is showing in dispute. Okay, so it's showing a balance. Balance data as of this year, right? So they keep on reporting it, unpaid, but it's like 6 years old. Okay, but there is a balance. Okay, make note of that because we have a letter from the debt collector stating that they're not attempting to collect on this debt, and we've got a precedent that we're going to talk about that says credit reporting is an attempt to collect a debt. Okay, and we're going to go through that. All right, so we've got this right here in our bag of goodies. IQ data, so that was August 3rd. So there must have been something sent before. I know Jessica said there was. TransUnion had previously deleted it. So again, I'm missing a bunch of stuff here, but we need to just kind of give it a good pass over because it's coming to me for the first time to help Jessica get this thing handed off for an attorney. Okay, so then we've got the next day, IQ data had filed a response. It looks like there was a complaint must have been filed with the state of, I don't know, whoever this is, some federal bureau, Florida bureau, something. Okay, so IQ data is the debt collector. They're writing this letter to the state of Florida. Hey, I guess there was a complaint filed against us, IQ data, to you, Florida regulator, whatever. Okay, so let's read through this. So this is the debt collector responding to the regulator, which I don't have the document that triggered this. Okay, but we have this. So in response to a letter dated June 20th, okay, see, this is June. The most recent thing I've got is August. Okay, so Mr. Customer's accounts were, and it says accounts, notice that they've got 2 accounts on one of the other bureaus. Okay, were placed with our office April of 2018. And let's go ahead and look back at Equifax. The date, assigned they've got is April of 2018. Okay, so those dates do match. Oopsie, let's go back here. Okay. To collect final move-out charges owed to client. Okay, the apartment complex. We have reviewed the conversation between Mr. Customer and our office, which is the debt collector, and we found no evidence of misconduct. Our review found our collection specialists offered the consumer the opportunity to discuss his dispute, but no details were ever provided. Okay. We received Mr. Consumer's dispute in September of 2019. So again, we've got years of this thing going back and forth, and I don't have anything from 2019. So again, if you're wanting to hand stuff like this off to an attorney, what we're doing here is what needs to happen. Because I mean, if you just give a bunch of documents like this to an attorney, I mean, most of them are super busy, and right, they're just we need to give them a reason to look at our file. So we need to just get it all teed up. Okay. So we've got stuff from September of 2019 claiming the accounts were a result of identity fraud. Okay. Now I don't know. Hopefully this consumer did not actually claim fraud. That would be a problem. Okay. So I mean, that is kind of problematic, but I don't know. Okay, because I have nothing going back that far. And validation documents, including the first and last pages of this lease. Now, that's a problem for them because they only provided the first and last pages. How the hell are you going to provide the first and last pages and not the middle of it? That's a problem. FDCPA, you can't collect on anything not authorized by the contract or authorized by law. Well, where the hell is the contract? Middle of it. Okay. Let's see. The surety deposit bond agreement and final account statement were mailed. So they sent the consumer in 2019, evidently, the first and last pages of the lease, copy of the debt collector's bond, and the final account statement on the account from the apartment complex. Okay, we continue to receive disputes and requests for additional information to fully investigate the consumer's claim of fraud. Again, that is problematic from my position here when to hand this off to a lawyer. We cannot just gloss over that when these people are saying that there was alleged allegations of fraud. Because if it's not fraud and they're alleging fraud, that's a problem. Mailed to him in 2020. While the consumer has submitted the same copies of the state-issued ID and bill to our office, Both of these were issued after the time of the lease, and the consumer has never submitted any documentation that supports his claim to our office, nor has he elaborated on the nature of his claim. We are unable to determine the account as a result of any fraud. Okay, so that is a problem. If this guy was originally saying, hey, somebody fraudulently opened this up, and I don't know personally, I've got to figure this out. That is kind of a problem. Okay, I mean, we can't overlook that. I mean, that's again something important for us to note, because if you give this an attorney sues them, and they're like, well, Your Honor, or your arbitrator, this guy's been sending us bogus ass disputes for 4 years. And at first, he went from saying fraud to this to that, to now he's suing us. That's a very easy way for you to lose. Okay, so we have to know what we're looking at here. Okay. Okay, so I need to get some more details from Jessica from you on that. But upon receipt of this complaint, which was this year, we reached out to the apartment complex, who confirmed the balances on file as accurate. Our office has ceased actively collecting. Okay, that's important to note right there, because there is this precedent that says that credit reporting is a debt collection action. We're going to go through that precedent. Okay, so that's why you got to know what you need to know, so you can figure out how you can put together intelligent disputes. I mean, I can't guarantee an attorney's going to want to take this thing for a number of reasons, including this fraud. That really does, I mean, that's kind of a problem. But I can guarantee we're going to put a freaking bang up, smash up, pre-lit document together here, right? And that's all we can really do for our clients. Okay, so our clients, so the debt collector has ceased collecting, even though they're reporting it with the balance, which precedent says is debt collection. That's going to be something we're going to throw in. Okay, as this is a time barred account, so they're acknowledging it's time barred. However, if the consumer sends any money, it'll be applied. Okay, standard stuff there. Thank you for your opportunity, blah, blah, blah. We love you. Okay, so that's their letter to the regulator. This is the copy, I guess, of April 11th. This was that first document. Because remember, if we look at here, it was opened on April of 2018 with the debt collector. So this was their kind of their first notice, I guess. See, 950243, 9321. How is it, okay, 9321 in interest. So, and again, how is all this calculated? That they only sent us the first and last pages of an agreement? That's highly problematic for them. Okay, we need to figure out what we can exploit in a good way. I mean, exploit in a good way, and that's going to be one thing. Okay, you're sitting here, and it's not like they're just collecting 9321, and on the last page of the contract it said, whatever, just how it calculates your thing. They're adding interest, so we kind of need to have a whole contract. Okay, so this was just the debt collector's first letter, the typical 1692 GA letter. Okay, this is, let's see, some claim process form. Looks like the apartment complex filed a claim. $1,750, I guess, was paid by the apartments for damages. Surety deposit. Okay, so there was a $1,750 surety, I guess, secure deposit or something like that. And the amount due is $9,321. Okay, so that's their claim, I guess. And here's a rundown starting from oldest in March of 2017. Here's kind of now I have not gone through with a fine-tooth comb and looked at every line item here, but they did give you kind of some sort of a line item breakdown, which is kind of okay. But then here's interesting. 9403, but then you got things scribbled and stuff. Okay, if this came from the apartment complex, I'll scribble and strike through. Write-offs prior to being sent to collection, 9403, 1668. Correct amount correction needs to be made to down. Okay, I mean, so they've got stuff with handwritten notes on it. That's not necessarily too convincing to me. Okay, and here's the lease. You've got a first page, and okay, the amount of your lease, page 1 of 7, and DocuSign, and you've got a last page of a lease, page 7 of 7. So as they admitted, they don't have a complete document. All right, so that's this document. So on 8-3, we had this dispute resolved from Equifax. I don't have that dispute. On 8-4, there was a document from the debt collector to some regulator. Okay, and then on 8-30, another Equifax, let's see here, dispute to Equifax from the consumer, request to provide method of verification. Okay, tell me what you previously did. Basically, your method of valid verification request to Equifax. That's on 8-30. Okay, USPS certified, to track that thing to Equifax. 9-15, Equifax response. Let's see here. Now, this is interesting. I saw a bunch of these during COVID. This is really interesting. So they're saying, Equifax is saying, we're unable to locate your credit file. But then notice they say Equifax Canada. So somehow, and I've seen this letter before, Equifax is, when they receive this person's letter, they're trying to find a Canadian credit file. So they're saying this guy doesn't have a credit file, but then they're talking about Equifax Canada. That's like an issue, isn't it, guys? Okay. So that's kind of September-ish. And then, let's see, October, Equifax credit report. Okay, here's the Equifax credit report. Consumer disputes this account, but that's only the current status. It doesn't show any historical information, okay? Your date of first delinquency is still 2017. Here's your amounts, your original amounts, and your amount. Okay, so that's your Equifax annual credit report. Great work, Jessica, on getting those annual reports, by the way. And your Experian report from October as well. Great work getting this. Okay, so there's some good gems in this one. Now, this one here, let's go down. The trade line, there's actually 2 separate trade lines, okay? There's the main IQ data. And see, look at this. There's missing monthly payments. The assumption here that we make is that they just did not report on these months, okay? And to collect a debt, we can make the assumption that they have to agree with the bureaus to report Metro 2, because the bureaus, their policy is to contractually require furnishers, including debt collectors, that they will report in Metro 2. And Metro 2 has a standard, a manual that says they must report monthly. So if the debt collector has contractually agreed with the bureaus as a condition of reporting that they're going to conform to their industry standard, and they don't, that's deceptive, which is a violation of the FDCPA. There's not a case law on this specifically, but again, they're all different, and case law has to get made. I mean, how can they have the privilege of reporting based on a contractual agreement to do certain things, and then they don't do those things? And there's this precedent we're going to go over that says credit reporting is debt collection. Okay, so we're missing a bunch of months. Okay, but here's what I want to show you is down here. Okay, there's this comments section. Okay, okay, your previous comments, accounts disputed by the consumer. Here, look at the months. Okay, September 2023, May of 2023 to July. So July, so May, June, and July. But see, then there's a space here. Okay, March of 21 to March of 23. So April of 23 is missing, right? We go from March of 2023, April's missing, to May of 23, and in July, there's no August, and then September, right? And we go back up here. I mean, you've got it reporting here. Let's go back down here. So you've got it. So here's, it gets interesting because April of 2023 is missing, and August, May, and okay, April and August, the A's are missing. Interesting here. April is showing as a collection, but August and here is no data for the payment history. So, I mean, first I was thinking maybe they just didn't report it, but what the hell, they did report the payment history. So they're going to report it has to be monthly, which is the industry standard requirement. Okay, so here we have a trade line that is showing in dispute, but because we've got the Experian, we can see that they're actually giving the historical reporting. So the question is, are they suggesting that this account was not in dispute in April and in August? That's the question, because this reporting would indicate that. You see what I mean there? Okay. Okay, so that's what we have to work with. Okay, so now we're going to take some tools out of our toolbox. If we go to our training course group, let's see here. You know, you've got guide number 52 with some sample affidavit language. Okay, and so I'm going to suggest that we turn this dispute into an affidavit, and then we can just kind of cherry pick this affidavit signature section here, which was downloaded from what I've got in the group. We've got the Metro 2 manual. Okay, and we're going to go over real quick in this Metro 2 manual. Again, for a furnisher, including a debt collector, to have the privilege of reporting to the bureaus contractually require. We make the assumption that they do, right? And then, I mean, this would come out as a yes in depositions, right? Because I technically at this point have no firsthand knowledge of IQ Data's relationship with the bureaus, but we make the assumption that based on the bureau's policy, IQ Data should have been required to report, to sign contractually with the bureaus that they're going to conform to Metro 2. And conform to Metro 2, they have the reporting guide, okay? And if we go down here to section 2, industry reporting standards, all accounts must be reported a minimum of once per month, okay? So we have a debt collector that we make the assumption contractually agreed in order to report credit, which is a debt collection activity based on the precedent. So in order to use credit reporting to collect on a debt, they agreed to report monthly, and they're not reporting monthly, okay? So that's a deceptive activity in relation to the reporting of a debt, excuse me, the collection of a debt, okay? That we're putting this together like this, okay? So again, once you guys do this, I mean, you know, you get your templates and your snippets. We're just kind of going through here, so you get the idea. But there we go. Okay, so that's how we use Metro 2. All those people who say their attorneys don't ever need no Metro 2 or whatever, well, you know, Metro 2 is the industry standard, and it's contractually agreed to by these debt collectors. Okay, and then I've got my little notes right here. Okay, there's this amazing precedent, okay, called Escobar versus Midland Credit Management. And then I've got the sections of the FDCPA here that Midland Credit. So basically, in this case, Midland Credit, so the precedent was set that credit reporting is a debt collection. Now, in this case, the account had been paid for and not marked as paid. It still had a balance. So it's a little different than this, but we have a letter where the debt collector says, hey, this thing is, we've ceased collecting on it. We're not collecting. So how can you not be collecting when you're using credit reporting as a debt collection tool and you're showing a balance? So again, it's about taking these precedents and making, you know, basically saying, hey, our fact pattern essentially fits this already successfully argued. Okay, so you've got Escobar. Let's open here. Escobar versus Midland. You guys can read through this, you know, but basically you go down here and they tie together in FDCPA. Let's go down here. Let's go down. Okay, so they tie together, okay, so 1692E2, the false representation of the character, amount, or legal status of a debt. So they're tying together 1692E2, 1692E8, which we know, if we've been out in the pre-lit world, this is the communicating or threatening to communicate to any person credit information which is known or which should be known to be false. And if they contractually signed off to the bureaus to conform to Metro 2, in that manual it says it must be monthly, they should have known that they're reporting false credit information, right? And then, of course, this is really what everybody just focuses on, including the failure to communicate that a disputed debt is in dispute, but that's only half of it. And then we have those months where it's missing, okay? So we have multiple ways to weave this in. The use of, and then E, 1692E10, the use of any false representation or deceptive means to collect or attempt to collect any debt. Okay, this is important because this precedent says credit reporting is debt collection activity. And I'm saying, okay, well, they've contractually agreed with the bureaus to have the privilege of using the bureaus as a debt collection tool. And they're not conforming to their contractual agreement. That is they falsely representative or use deceptive means to collect the debt, okay? Because they were deceptive to the bureaus, because they said, yeah, wink, wink, bureaus, we're going to conform to your standard, but we're really not. And this precedent says that reporting is debt collection, okay? And so the use of any false representation or deceptive means to collect any debt, which this precedent says, okay? So that's just 1692E2, 8, and 10. This is very, very important to be able to wire these three together. And then down here, you've got 1692F somewhere in here, 1692F1, 1692F1. Attempt to collect an amount that was not expressly authorized by the agreement creating Escobar's debt or permitted by law. Okay, and this is because this is what the FCCPA says. We have a contract that's missing, and they admitted that it's missing a bunch of pages. And so this is what we're going to do here. Okay, but actually, let me go back real quick to the Experian report, because if you guys recall, I said this reporting twice. So this is the first trade line reporting on his Experian. Let me kind of make this smaller. And then there's a second trade line altogether different, the 1750, which, again, I don't know if this was, when we looked at the other document, it showed 1750. It kind of looked like a surety deposit, but I don't know why they're collecting it if it was a surety deposit. So, but they've thrown a second trade line on this client's credit report. Okay. And we'll just kind of look real quick here at what we had just looked at in Escobar. So if we go to 1692, first we'll go to F. Okay. 1692 F1. Okay. So unfair practices, unfair, the collection of any amount, including any interest, fee, or charge, and they are collecting interest. So we need to make darn sure we've got a full contract and we know how that thing is calculated. Or expense incidental to the principal obligation unless such amount is expressly authorized either by the agreement, which they literally gave us a chopped up half of an agreement, or permitted by law. Okay. So what law are they saying then that they're using? Okay, so that's 1692F. And then if we go back, E, they pulled together the false representation of the character, amount, or legal status of the debt. That was, remember, E2 was in here when we went back up to this right here. Okay, 1692E2, the false representation of the character of the debt, E8, communicating or threatening to communicate to any person credit information which is known or should be known to be false. Notice it says nothing about disputing. People overlook this half of it, or including the failure to communicate a dispute. So you can do one or the other, or both. Okay, and then they had put in E10, the use of any false representation or deceptive means to collect on a debt. Okay, and again, they've contractually agreed. That's, I mean, unless they prove otherwise, that's the industry standard. Is the bureaus require furnishers to contractually commit to conform to Metro 2. Metro 2, as we went over here, I know we're going over kind of fast, but again, says all accounts must be reported once per month, literally industry reporting standards. Okay, so if they contractually agreed to be able to report, saying they were going to report monthly, and they're using the reporting as a debt collection tool, which is what this precedent makes it very clear. It seems reasonable to me to make an argument, hey, Your Honor, they use deceptive means to collect the debt because they're using credit reporting as a tool to collect the debt. But in order to be able to have the privilege of using credit reporting as a tool to collect the debt, the credit reporting companies require them to conform to their standard, which requires monthly reporting, which this thing does not have. Okay, and again, if we look back at these reports, and they're all different, but this thing is missing a bunch of monthly reporting, no data. You guys see that? And then we go up to this other one, it's got a bunch of missing, no data. And we go back down here where it was showing in dispute, it's missing months. Okay, so clearly it's not reporting months. Okay, so that's kind of that. So these are the tools that we're going to work with, the Metro 2 manual. And then I've got this little Excel here, which is just kind of my little notes. I put in green the actual ones that were in the Escobar court opinion. And this was the language I just copied out of that, the Escobar court opinion that I went down. Okay, so the false representation of the character, amount, or legal status. And this was what I had read to you guys. 1692E8, excuse me, 1692E2. Then we have 1692E8, communicating to any person. Communicating to any person, which is the CRAs. That is very, very, very important. Let's go back here to our communicating or threatening to communicate to any person credit information. They are communicating to the CRAs credit information, which is known or should be known to be false because it does not conform to what they've contractually agreed to, which is to report monthly. And so there you go. See how that works, right? Okay. All right. So there you go. So, and we go back on this. Okay, so communicating, it doesn't have to be communicated to the consumer, right? Communicating to any person credit information, which is known or should be known to be false. It should be known because their industry standard requires monthly reporting. And then false representation to collect any debt. Now, again, Escobar, this precedent was a paid account. This one here is not paid, but again, you got to find precedents that work and say, well, here's why what we have matches up to it. And this is a pretty darn good fact pattern here, right? Then we have EF in general, use unfair, unconscionable means to collect any debt. Okay, it's unfair to tell the bureaus, hey, we're going to tell you we're going to report monthly as the privilege, but then we're going to just throw whatever we want to, whenever we want to, not monthly on the credit report. Okay, and your F1, whoopsie, collection of any amount, including interest, blah, 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 expressly authorized in the agreement, which they don't have a complete agreement. Okay, and then I've got like just a little added note here, the requirement to report a date of first delinquency. This is not part Escobar, but I mean, if you've got a credit report that does not have a date of first delinquency, which Equifax does, Experian does not. We don't know if that issue is coming from the CRA or the furniture, but there you go. Okay. So here you go. So this is kind of what our tools are going to be in this. So now what we need to do is kind of just put together our dispute letter. So um, we're gonna open up just kind of a new. We'll just start off with this one actually, because I'm going to suggest that this gets sent in as an affidavit. Okay, so we're going to just bring this to another page, enable editing. And I downloaded this from the course. Insert page break. Okay, so we'll go back up here. Okay, so you're going to put two, and we would actually send one version of this to the CRAs and one to the debt collector. So to the CRA, version 1, to IQ data, version 2. Okay. So first what we want to do is just put the fact pattern together. Okay, so that's very important. Again, this came from Jessica. Great work putting this together, coming to me. If you want an attorney to take this first, we've got to organize this thing. Okay, so number one is, let's go back here. So this is our fact pattern right here. Okay, so we're going to just kind of, and then we've got a bunch of holes, if you guys recall, because the IQ data letter went back to 2019. Okay, but so like, on or about, we'll just put 8/3/2023 Equifax dispute results. Okay, and we can fill in the meat and potatoes later. Okay, on or about 8/4/2023 IQ data response to regulator. Okay, on or about, that's kind of how you want to do it, on or about 8/30/2023 dispute letter to Equifax. Okay. So on or about, okay, we say which was delivered to Equifax on or about, 9/6, right? Okay. See that right there? Right there. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, tracking. Okay. And then we've got the letter Equifax Canada. Okay. So then we've got on or about 9/15/23. Equifax sent a letter stating that they could not locate a file on the consumer. Okay. And then we kind of fast forward to 10/16. Okay. We've got Equifax. And now these are the online reports, which are the full file disclosures. And I'm just putting the skeletons here. Okay. And then we will fill this in Experian. Stop here. Okay. Okay. Now, what are we missing? Okay, let's take a look at IQ data dispute response. Okay, we go to this IQ data dispute response. They give us some details. Okay. Letter dated June 20th. Let me kind of just move this over here, sort of. Okay, move this over here. Okay, so what we're missing, we'll just kind of do this. So this is what we need to figure out. Okay. Because a good attorney, and again, I'm not an attorney, but we're looking to send this off to one, right? They want to know all the answers before they ask the question. So we need to know what the hell's going on here. So missing. Okay, so June, so 6/20. Okay, so we know there was a dispute to IQ data because they stated right in here. Okay. Okay, April 28th. So as part of the fact pattern, here we'll go ahead and do it this way actually. Okay, and because on or about, again, we need to lay down the whole thing here. So on or about right here, 4/2018, that place for collection with IQ data. Okay. Okay. September 2019 fraud dispute. So that's definitely problematic. So we're missing that right there. Okay. Let's see here. So it's going to be September 2019. I'm going to put this in red because we just want to make mental note for ourselves. Like, we don't want to get ourselves tripped up here. Let's see. We continue to receive disputes, and the request for additional information to fully investigate the consumer's claim was mailed. Okay, so basically they replied to what had happened there. So what we're missing is the January of 2020 fraud dispute response to consumer from IQ data. Okay, from IQ data, we're missing that. Okay, we don't have any more dates here. Okay, all right. So what we have here is, okay, so then on this right here, no. Okay, the 8/4/2023 IQ data response. Okay, this letter contains response to regulator. Okay, so this document includes a lease agreement with only, we'll go back up here. Okay, with only, okay, the first and last pages. This agreement is incomplete. Okay, that's the issue. Okay, we'll just kind of bullet it here a little bit. So this is what we're kind of saying. This agreement is incomplete. No, actually, I put the bullet in the wrong spot here. Let's go back. Okay, so these are the issues contained in this dispute. Okay. This document states that IQ data has ceased collection efforts. However, the credit reports are still being updated periodically. We'll say periodically because they're not updating them monthly, but they're being updated periodically because if we look, here is your Equifax report. Your balance date is October of 2023. Same thing if we go to Experian. They've been updated frequently, but just not monthly. Okay, so we're going to say periodically. And we'll remove these little things there. They cease collection, however, the credit reports are still being updated periodically, which is an attempt to collect a debt. Okay. So these facts we basically kind of ascertain from here. And then we look at our Experian full file disclosure. You can say that the high points is there is no date of first delinquency reporting, which is required under the FCRA and industry standard. Okay. We can also state that although the trade line does report the account to be disputed, it only lists a few of the historical months, and the months which are marked as, we'll say disputed. This is false because the account was continuously in dispute without any missing months. And so we're talking about right here, and credit reporting is required to be performed monthly based on the industry standard that IQ data certainly is required.
Hey, Steve, quick question, brother.
Jeff, man, I was just thinking I was over here talking to myself.
Yeah, no, I'm watching you, man. On that second one, although
you're watching me peck like this. I tell you what, that's why I do credit repair, because I'm not a good typist. Go ahead, man. What's up?
Although what you're saying is those ones where they didn't report no data, you could actually kind of claim that they didn't report it as disputed on those months as well.
Well, here's what I'm saying. Very good. Let's go back, and
because that's an interesting concept. I never considered that.
So, and if we look at the training course, if you go back to module 2 in the guides, I kind of have like that Excel and I break down how to read the report. And there's two main parts of your report. There's the current status, and then there's the historical status. Typically you see the payment history, but really all those required fields should be reported historically. And then different of these reports give you different information, which in and of itself, if this were a pure FCRA dispute, is a problem, right? Because it's like they're all inaccurate. Okay. So what we're saying here, though, is if we look at up here, which trade line is this? Is this the right one? Let me just do this really quick here. That's capital 1. Okay, so this is the first one. So they're saying down here, just the way that they give this report format. Current status, comments, indisputed. Okay, and the current status is, that's really part of up here, kind of all this stuff, right? As of the date reported, which they don't even really, they give you a balance updated. Again, that's not even really like Metro 2 conformity, but clearly this thing was reported like October of 2023. And for those of you guys watching the replay, today is October 24th, 2023. So it was updated this month. Okay, so down here, this is part of, they're saying as of this month, it's still currently in dispute. The nice thing about this report is they're saying historically it was disputed from March of 21 to March of 23. There's no April.
Oh, okay.
And from May of 23 to July of 23, there's no August. And then in September, and there's no October, but October is up here. Okay. Now we can definitely make this argument on the other reports. Then you just have to tie it all together where they don't even give you the historical at all, and they're supposed to. Okay. But at least the nice thing about this one is it's like, well, they're giving you the historical, and the historical has clearly got holes in it. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, but yeah, even if the other reports, like if we look at Equifax, consumer disputes, well, where is the historical information? I mean, yeah, this is all jacked up and incomplete as well. Okay, but the nice thing about this one literally, a judge can look at this and be like, well, clearly I can see that, right? The judge can't look at this. He's got to conceptualize what's not there. You with me, Jeff?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So we go back here then. So credit reporting is required to be performed monthly based on the industry standard. The IQ data almost certainly is required to conform to, in order to have the, it's like, and I didn't say as a matter of fact, okay? Because again, I'm suggesting we turn this into a fact-based affidavit, and I don't know for a fact. I have no firsthand knowledge of the fact that IQ data is required to conform to Metro 2, but I know I can say that they almost certainly are, right? So that is something that you can say because it's not like a statement of fact, it's an opinion. Like I think they most certainly are. Let's let discovery prove me wrong, okay? That they have, let's see, required to conform in order to have the privilege of reporting credit data to Equifax and Experian. This credit reporting is in fact. Okay, we're going to say this is in fact. I mean, we've got precedents. And notice, guys, I'm not quoting any laws, any precedents, but it's behind the scenes. You see what I mean? So I'm just putting the plain thing right here together that you can hand this to 100 lawyers, and then somebody's gonna like it. That's the whole point. And then you can go back behind the scenes and be like, oh well, here's how I came to this, Mr. So and so. But this is all you need to do is just lay down the facts right here. Okay. And again, this seems like a lot. And this client has this one account. If you've got a client with like 10 or 15 credit accounts, I mean, this stuff here, if you're keeping track of this each round, this maybe takes what 10, 15 minutes a round, right? Okay, I received on this date, and you can just have like a living document, a Word document each round, right? And update it. Oh, we received 8:30, and this is for whatever the following 10 trade lines. Okay, so you don't have to sit here for an hour. I mean, you can. And again, if you're trying to give a case file to an attorney, if you can't spend an hour doing it, you're not going to expect them to take an hour looking at it. Does that make sense? There's the time trade-off. Okay,
I want to do a nice little breakdown along with your submission to an attorney so they can read
right.
The breakdown of events that occurred.
And this is going to be our dispute, and we're turning this fact pattern into dispute. And so you literally have it all typed up here. And so when you hand this, eventually, we're going to cycle through this dispute, and the attorney can look at this and like literally, I mean, they just copy paste this into the suit if they want to do that because it's all organized. Organized is where we're going here, right? Okay, the credit reporting is in fact, and we'll say this as in fact because I mean, we've got the precedent that we looked at now. Obviously, there's different circuits, things like that. We all know there's different circuits. One circuit isn't binding on the other, but the point is, we're going to say that it's in fact, credit reporting is in fact a debt collection activity. Okay, and so, and then so from here, hey, Mr. Attorney, it's a deceptive practice for them to have credit reporting as a debt collection and to say that they're going to report monthly and to not do that. Okay, again, we don't need to get all super sophisticated here, but we need to know exactly how we tie this thing together. Okay, all right, so this is going to be kind of, we need to figure out what's going on here. Obviously, we're not going to send like this. I'm typing this for you guys once we get this thing polished up. I mean, we want to have this here if we're going to have an attorney look at it as part of the fact pattern, but we're not going to want to send this to IQ data like, hey, it looks like there's an affidavit. I'm telling you, I did a fraud dispute when it was not fraud, but this is for us saying, how do we pre-lit this thing, get the fact pattern together? Okay, so then what we would want to do, and then we've got this affidavit page here. We would have the client sign and notarize this. And the other things we're going to do is, if you take we want to put the trade lines in. Okay, this is multiple pages. Typically what I would do, there's like this screen snipping tool, not that. If you go to your Windows Explorer and type in snip, there's a snipping tool. Let me unclick that thing right there. Boom. There's a snipping tool that you guys can use. Where did I freaking find it here? It's popped up into here. There's this little snipping tool. You can just kind of snip. Now let me go back to the first page. Okay. IQ data. Okay, so we can snip. This is one way. One way is you can convert this PDF to JPEGs. Okay, and then just drag those JPEGs. Another one is you can snip. File, save as. We'll save this to the desktop really quick here. We'll just put, we'll put hearing one. Obviously, we're doing this on the fly, real time, live, and censored for you guys. But what you can do here then is, you want to do this for all disputes actually. And where you put it is kind of up to you. I'll just say we'll put it maybe insert page break. Okay, and then we're going to just kind of drag, and I'll show you guys here. So there's this JPEG right here. I'll double click it. This is what I just screen clipped. Okay, and you can literally just drag and drop into Word. Boom. Okay, right there. And then you can put something like let's kind of space it down actually. And this requires, you can put like Experian report dated, I think it was 10/16. You can put this something like this. Okay. Let me delete this again and do it back with this. I think it'll stick now. It popped it to another page, but if we do this, sometimes you have to kind of jiggle it a little. Boom, there we go. It popped up. Okay, so you guys get the point. So now you've got kind of your exhibits. Okay, Experian report. We're going to want to put in the other pages. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of do a little supplement to this video once I get this letter teed up, and I'll kind of splice it in. We'll put this as a standalone video for people who are outside of this training course. We may put this on YouTube or something, but the point is this is pretty much what you're going to want to do. Okay. And I'll take a little bit of time, kind of finish this thing up, add a little supplement. But this is it. So what do we have here? First is we have, just to kind of recap, we have the facts. The facts are I've got all these documents not organized in by date. That is a fact. Now what's in these documents may be hearsay, but like I've got a Metro 2 manual, and then we've got the Metro 2 manual, which says, so it's the fact that the Metro 2 manual says reporting should be monthly, but it's an assumption that IQ data is required. So it's important we understand, we want to state the facts, right? So the fact is, I believe IQ data, but it's not a fact that IQ data because I really don't know it until they've been subpoenaed and deposed and discovered and all that stuff. Okay. So we start with the facts, and then we basically just put together a document of the facts. Where the hell is my document here? Right here. I'll save this. Okay, right there, boom. And then you've got your facts. And then notice what we did here. First we organized the facts, and then we kind of put the sort of the violations, if you would. This correspondence contains a lease agreement with only the first and last page. Okay. And I can put in here, something like, this is reasonable for us to do this. We've got our little cheat sheet here, okay. And we can say something like, again, we're not quoting like 1692 EF1, but we can say something like, check this out, right? This is how we keep it intelligent. So where you can hand this, theoretically to 100 lawyers or arbitrators, and the one who wants it, right? Because nobody wants your letters when you got, citations of case laws and even the real law. Nobody wants it. They want the facts so that they can then do what their law degree entitles them to do, which is figure out how they're going to strategize and, what precedents they're going to want to do. But here's what we can do. This document includes a lease agreement with only the first and last pages. This agreement is incomplete. So we'll paste in here that thing that I just copied. And again, so this is a statement of fact if it's an affidavit. So the statement of fact would be, it is my understanding that. Okay, so now we're not accusing them of violating any law. We're not even citing the law, but we're quoting the law, but we're not saying we're quoting the law. So it's my understanding that the collection of any amount, and they're trying to collect interest, including the interest fee charge, unless it's amount expressly authorized by the contract, the debt. Where's the word? Okay, let's see, I think I'm missing. So I'm missing some language there. Let's go back. We are raw and uncut. So F right here. Okay. A violation of this section. So, okay, it is unfair practice. That's the word we're looking for. Okay. So it is my understanding that, here we go, that it is an unfair debt collection practice for the collection of any amount. And again, you can maybe rewrite it to collect. And again, once you have this the first time, you save this as a snip. And if you get, a little thing like this, I copied this language right here straight up from the Escobar legal opinion. And then what could you do over here? You could have another column over here where you could start to have your little snippets, and then you're boom, boom, boom. You're right there, So freaking right here, you could take this, you could have a little paragraph here. This could be like your dispute snippets. You know what I'm saying, guys? You get the point, right? You guys get the point. We'll kind of wrap. There we go. I don't know. I think I just jacked it. No, we're going to cancel. Anyway, I just messed it up, but you get the point, right? So we're kind of doing this in real time, first time, but like once you do it and you know what you're doing, then you've got all your snippets together. The only thing that will really take time is putting the fact pattern. And again, if you do that after each round, this is not a difficult process. And then you get your snippets and, 1681F in general. It's my understanding that an unfair collection practice for any of amount fees expressly authorized. Okay, boom, there you go. So, okay, so this document states that IQ data has ceased collection efforts. Okay. However, the credit reports are still being updated periodically. And we can say, again, because we're not wanting to be like accusatory, if that's even a word, we're just a simple consumer statement of facts. So again, you can say that it is my understanding that that it is hold on a second here, okay. So it is my understanding that it is but it is not going to be EF. We're going to go back, excuse me, not EF. It's not F, it's E. It is a false or misleading representation. Okay. It is my understanding that it is a false or debt collection representation. False. I can spell correctly, guys. You're not watching this to learn how to spell. You're watching this to learn how to put the dispute letters. False misleading debt representation, and then we can kind of go back here, to right here. Boom. Okay. Again, we have this Escobar precedent. Is my understanding that it is a false or misleading debt collection representation. I freeform typed this before. Now I'm just going to paste this with exactly the language. Representation to communicate, or threaten. So we'll just kind of make the English look good, right? Threaten to communicate to any person, right? Any person is communicating to the CRA. See that? Credit information which is known or which should be known to be false, including the failure to communicate, blah, blah. Okay, and then there we go. Okay, so this is how we do it. So I'm going to kind of, I'll take a few minutes kind of off of this, but I'll splice the videos together and kind of finish this thing up. Jessica, I'm going to talk with you as well because this is your client. But we're going to do one version. We'll take the meat and potatoes. We'll do a CRA dispute. We'll take another one straight to IQ data. And look, if they don't delete this thing, I mean, you can't have a better thing teed up to be able to show the client. First of all, number one, look, this is how the issues are. And again, you are not practicing law in this. There's no legal law cited. There's no case law. This is what you need to do. Just state the facts. And if for whatever reason, the attorneys look at this and they're like, I don't like it for the following reason. Well, I mean, hey, they're going to make their judgment, right? I mean, there's no guarantees, but it ain't because you just wrote some kind of crazy letter like, the typical credit repair, like prove it or remove it or whatever. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share on this. We'll clean this up a little bit. I'll do kind of a supplemental video. I know you guys have been patiently waiting and watching, but any thoughts on this, Jeff, if you're still there, or any other thoughts before we kind of wrap this one up and we kind of continue on with this one next week. All right, Jeff, I see